Thank you. Thanks, Mark. And thanks to everybody who's joining us for the panel, and especially to my guests, Peter and Todd. Quick one, I'm Kimberley, co-founder, managing director of SkyParlour PR. That's enough about me. So we're going to talk now a little bit about, well, hopefully a lot about partnerships. I have Peter from Contis and Todd joining me from Token. I'll let them do an introduction for those of you who aren't familiar with the businesses. But I'm hoping that during this panel you can tell us a little bit about the partnership that you announced between your businesses last week, why that's exciting for the sector, but also hoping we can pick up on some of the points that Chris raised about the digital financial services, how we've responded to the pandemic, and perhaps talk about why partnerships like the ones Token and Contis have formed are going to be essential to the future, for the future success of fintech. So thanks, Chris, for setting the scene there, because I think it's picked up on a few really important points I'm hoping we can cover too. So without further ado, Peter, if you could just provide us with an introduction to yourself and to Contis, as I said, for those that aren't aware.
Okay. All right. As you can see, one of the older fintechs in town. I've been around for too long in technology. Founded Contis back in 2008 with the vision of originally being a prepaid card company. But what we've actually ended up is a business that's democratizing the whole payments area. We're now a banking as a service provider. I think we are a leader. There's many people who use that in promotion, which I think they must be aimed at their investors. We've been self-funding. We have over 1 million end users on our platform. We're connected to the banking rails. We're connected to Visa. We're a processor, and we have a global ambition. So right now, quite an interesting company, but very digital, at the leading edge of digital. And I sympathize with the earlier speaker in terms of talking to Barclays Bank, who he was talking about, who could not communicate within 148 minutes of a call. Where a company like us, we actually do have call centers, and they were operational within 4 hours of us going into lockdown. And service levels went up thanks to a great team working at home. So a little bit about us. Right. We're enablers. We help people launch digital platforms.
Great, thank you. Thanks for joining us, Peter. And Todd, welcome. If you could tell us a little bit about yourself and about Token.
Sure. So a little bit about myself. I guess I've been 34 years. So by the way, Todd Clyde, CEO of Token, based in London, despite the accent. I've been in software for 34 years. The last 24 of those years has been in startups. Have a lot of history in digital channels for banks. So, from 1998 to 2005, was very involved in internet banking. From 2008 to 2013, very involved in mobile banking. And when I heard about this API-based banking, it's like, okay, it's just the third digital channel for banks. But when I joined Token, I realized just how disruptive open banking was going to be. And it's not just another digital channel. So at Token, for the last 2 years, we've really been solely focused on solving this high cost of payments and the monopolies of credit cards. And we're trying to drive a shift from traditional payment methods, so the use of cards and wallets, to the use of bank transfers. So to do that, we've got an open banking payments platform that we provide for large merchants and other platforms, other payment service providers. And part of that platform is just quickly connectivity to banks across Europe, a toolkit that's ready for the channel. So we really try to be the platform inside the platform. So we enable other parties to bring open payments to their customers. And then third, what will be very relevant to our conversation today is we really bring a lot of value-added capabilities, such as refunds and payouts, or even data access or compliance capabilities. And in the expansion of kind of that differentiator of ours is where we've partnered with Contis, where we'll talk about it going forward. But wonderful to be here, and thank you for the opportunity.
No, it's great to have you, and perhaps it's very natural off the back of that intro. If you could just tell us a little bit about the partnership that was announced last week. How did it all begin? How long have you known Contis?
Sure. And the reason I was very happy to do this, to do some joint press with Contis, is this really is a unique partnership. Many people just state they're partners when it really means one is it's a customer supplier relationship. This one, we are truly using each other's technology and working very closely together. So how it all started, Contis is a payments institution that, as an ASPSP, they have to comply with PSD2. So last February, Contis selected our compliance API to help them comply with PSD2. Then, as Token was building out its value-added roadmap, again, for people familiar with open banking, initiating a payment doesn't make for a successful payment. What about when things go wrong? What about refunds? What about payouts? It's great to load a wallet, but what about offloading a wallet? So we started looking for a provider to partner for those capabilities, somebody that could provide pan-European capabilities, API-based, et cetera. And after a very long process, we selected Contis and found out also that at the same time, Contis was looking to add open banking capabilities to its offerings, both data and payments capabilities. So I called Peter up, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks before the end of a quarter and said, "You're our preferred partner here. Where do we stand in your priorities? And this could be really something quite interesting." And since then, we've had a couple of strategy sessions with our product teams, and have a very good aligned vision for how we want it to evolve. But that's kind of how it all got started.
Yeah. Thanks. And of course, sorry, Peter.
I was going to say, actually, it was sort of a bit of a marriage made in heaven, because we both were missing parts. I mean, Contis is an end-to-end provider. We're regulated. We're banking as a service to a large number. We have 250 clients that run on our platform, with a significant number of bank accounts. Not that the FCA now allows us to use that word, accounts, on our platform. And we needed that. We needed a reliable partner to give us connectivity. First, because people needed to inquire of us as to the status of an account and get information, but likewise our users wanted to out and search information. So we had a natural, if you like, technical requirement. Contis historically loves to own everything. We own everything we do. This was the first partnership where we've stepped outside and said, this is a specialist area, there are better people at it, let's have a good relationship with them. So that's how Todd and I got together, really. Yeah. And we've never physically met, which is quite amazing to actually get to where we are. So we haven't had a beer to celebrate. So what we have is a powerful relationship, and what it proves is that actually when you've got best of breed in two areas, it really makes sense to bring them together. You can't have, we can't build everything, and open banking as a subject is massive. It's changing, it's dynamic. So you need somebody who's really focused on it, and that's why we were Token. Yeah.
Good. And I guess touching on something Chris said, when you guys first engaged, you perhaps couldn't have predicted where we'd be during the week that you launched, and how important is the deal now? How important is the partnership given the current economic and global crisis that we're facing? Peter, if you got any thoughts on that?
Well, no, it's true. I mean, I have to say, when last March we had a budget which we felt was going to be fantastic, with continuing 60% year-on-year growth. Beginning of April, our new financial year, we were hit with a situation you couldn't imagine. And we felt, well, what do we do now? Do we scale back? Do we carry on? Well, we made the conscious decision to carry on, but be cautious. And we're now sitting here after, a prolonged period, nearly, 9 months nearly, where actually our volumes through digital banking have gone through the roof. We've seen a massive growth of transactions. We've seen a massive growth in the number of new clients we've onboarded. And so I think COVID has changed our whole outlook to life. We're very big in, one of our products is very big in social and financial inclusion. We work with the credit unions. ATM transactions were key to that. Well, if I told you the average end user had 7 ATM transactions in a month before COVID, now they're down to less than 2. Why? Because they now understand that they can use a mobile app to make payments. They can use contactless. There's a very big change. So I think we are in a revolution, and we won't be going back. That is for certain.
No. And I guess it's interesting to see how to use Chris's term, the digital native financial institutions or fintechs have responded so quickly and been so proactive in helping businesses and consumers during COVID-19. I guess it'll be interesting to see when we all do settle into this way of being, what that means for the fintech industry moving towards the middle end of 2021. And I picked up on a piece that you wrote recently, Todd, kind of looking at that bigger piece and looking at kind of flattening that cost curve within open banking and financial services. How important are relationships and true partnerships like the one Token and Contis have just formed to moving forward, to truly enabling open banking to make a long-term difference?
Well, first to answer the previous question as well, how has business changed during the pandemic? How more relevant is this partnership? And yeah, we have seen a dramatic uptick as well in digital payments, and there's a drive towards cheaper digital payments. So our number of merchants live has probably tripled. You know, our volumes have doubled every month since the start of the lockdown. So our volumes have doubled every month since March, and it looks like we're on track to do that through the end of the year. And then why are partnerships important in this? Is with that increase in customers, increase in usage, increase in transactions. What was specified in the regulation for open banking is not sufficient. You know, it allows you to initiate a payment and kind of not manage when exceptions happen. And so with increasing demand, obviously the increasing for those additional value-added services are needed. And our customers, you know, certainly expect from us, and it's on our roadmap to provide refunds and payouts and reconciliation and data capabilities and variable recurring payments in the future. So no, that increased demand basically brought need for this functionality, and as I said, after exhaustive search, we identified Contis as the right partner, and many reasons for that selection or that partnership was we both view the world the same way. You know, we are both trying to be pan-European. In fact, Contis a little bit even broader than us, and for a payments institution, that's very important. What I like is Peter's philosophy of owning the connections or owning the endpoints rather than aggregating a bunch of services. So, you know, Token is the same way. We're doing the heavy lifting of wiring to 3,000 banks across Europe. And because we feel that's something that in order to deliver highly robust, highly scalable monitoring, highly available with high success rates network of banks, you've got to own that connection. And I know Contis also has that same point of view. So, yeah, so I'd say definitely increasing demand and definitely increasing importance for the partnership during this pandemic.
And you touch upon how important the cultural fit is between the two businesses, and I think it's also important now that alternative financial institutions and fintechs have that cultural fit with their consumers or with the end user, whether it's with an SME or with a consumer. And you talked a bit there, Peter, earlier about how important financial inclusion is now, and how that's been accelerated by the mass rush to digitization that we've all seen during COVID-19. How important are partnerships like this when it comes to the hearts and minds of SMEs or businesses and consumers? Because there's been quite a little bit of reporting around a natural tendency to revert back to well-known financial brands in times of crisis. So how important, what's your vision for the future when it comes to fintech and the relationship between end users?
Well, I somewhat go with Mr. Skinner's view on life, and that is that, frankly, the core players in payments were the banks up until 2 years ago. What has happened through the pandemic has shown them for what they really are. And that is that they actually are only interested in large corporate accounts. They're not focused on retail, and it's a very poor service offering. I mean, you cannot survive if you rely upon the big boys. So where the opportunities come, and for companies like ours and Token, is that we can actually deliver dynamic solutions ready for today, as opposed to talking about them for the next 10 years. And where we've seen is actually, and I'm quite staggered by it, the number of people who've opened new accounts on our platforms, recognizing, we're the business behind a brand, but most of our brands are opening up accounts at speeds that we've never seen before. Now, yes, we have digital onboarding, we have the end-to-end solution, so we're doing the KYC, the AML, PEP sanctions, all the conventional things that you need. But the big reason that they're coming on board is, number one, we're reactive. Number two, we care. And number three, we proved that our technology works. And I think the biggest tick in our box in the last month, and one which gave me more grey hair, was moving 2 of our data centres out of the States to London and Amsterdam, which we successfully did over a weekend. We started at 1:30 on a Sunday morning and finished at 4:30. Without any hiccups. And that's the sort of level of technology that companies like us bring to the table. And being an end-to-end provider is so important. And the banks are just not end-to-end anymore. They actually can't really help you. I mean, I've had a conversation with another major clearer this morning about a financial arrangement I have with them. And they said, well, we really would like to talk about it, but we can't get the information. And that's the world we're in. It's an information-based society now. So whether you're poor or rich, you need information to do things. And you need the ability to make things happen quickly. Open banking is a major opportunity for mankind. And what Token ourselves are delivering enables people to do things quickly, efficiently, and at a reduced cost. And frankly, that's the way the world is. I think, Amazon and others.
It's been so important.
Yeah.
And it's never been so important. And so I think we just had a little bit of a delay there. Sorry. And we've seen fintechs, as I mentioned earlier, we've seen the capability and the responsiveness of digital native businesses in the response to COVID-19, whether it's, businesses like Hope North being involved in the bounce back loans or Starling's connected card. And we've seen, again, Todd, I've seen some of your work looking at what you guys have done to support businesses through COVID, reducing or eradicating transaction costs for charities, things like that. And do you think that moving into 2021, we'll see more true partnerships like this happening in fintech as fintech kind of really takes its true seat at the table, given how it showcased the capabilities during 2020?
Yeah, absolutely. Because what has this pandemic showed that businesses that are digital or can digitize more quickly are those that are going to survive and thrive in this. And what Contis does and what Token does is we help our businesses move more quickly, through partnerships. So yes, I do think those partnerships will become more important. So neither Contis or Token are direct to consumers. So it's not about improving that relationship with consumers. We're business to business, and we're all about helping our customers, our business customers, move more quickly and adopt these new capabilities more quickly. And in the case of Token, it's adopting access to banks. So adopting the insights that you can get through access to data on your customers, and it's access to a lower cost form of being paid and paying out. So yes, these types of partnerships. Pandemic has increased the speed of transformation. It has increased the speed of business, and partnerships, are mandatory to get there more quickly.
And I think it's also closed that thought gap between that B2B to C messaging as well. A lot in the industry. I'm in comms, so it's been interesting to see how businesses who are, like you say, traditionally B2B, are now talking about that B2B to C message and the impact that it is having on society for the greater good. And perhaps, Peter, you could talk a little bit about that financial inclusion point. What are the actual benefits that consumers are seeing from all of this innovation and collaboration that's taking place at the moment?
Obviously, we do have a B2B to C relationship through a product called Engage, which is a brand we own, which we supply to the credit union movement. The credit union movement, there's 400 institutions out there, which historically have been starved of technology because of price, but have been servicing a very important part of the community, and that's the underserved. And they're open and they can talk across a counter to somebody who's got a problem. That is something that is extremely missing in the whole world of finance at the moment. So what we've done there is to create solutions which enable them to help the individual. First is money management. We've created a budgeting tool which enables people to actually, when they receive either their benefits or their salary, they can partition it, put it into what we call envelopes. You can call them jam jars or whatever you like, and it safeguards that money to make the important payments throughout the period of to the next payment. So I think that's helped, but also information is terribly important. And I think data is going to be one of the big drivers that fintechs and companies like ourselves can latch onto. And that's giving people an insight to how people live and what you can do to help them. And I think this is something which will revolutionize the approach to financial inclusion. I'm on the debt unit for the Centre for Social Justice, and these guys are doing a fantastic job at looking at how we can help the underprivileged. And the figures are not what you think they are. The people you think are underprivileged aren't the underprivileged. There's a whole breed that we've now identified that frankly just are excluded from so much. And I think digital payments, ease of access to having an account of some description is the answer to a lot of the problems we have as a community. So it's powerful. And what open banking brings and what Token brings to the party is that ability to see that data, use that data, and use it powerfully to change people's lives, as well as protect yourself from entering into a lending or whatever that is actually inappropriate. And people had a big go at sort of doorstep lending, and if you like, the whole area of salary drawdown and all these payment schemes. Actually, by removing them, we've created another big void. We really have caused a problem, and that's pushed things towards loan sharks. So again, having information lets you stop that. So I think the combination of what fintech can do and what companies like the joint venture that we really, well, I call it a joint venture, it's a partnership, it's not a joint financial venture. What we have with Token is very, very important.
Yeah. It's really inspiring to think, what we've achieved as an industry and perhaps where we're going to close some of those gaps that you're talking about, Peter. And maybe that brings us into perhaps a final couple of questions. So looking ahead to 2021, Todd, what do you see Token achieving and as a partner with Contis, and also what do you see the industry achieving when it comes to collaboration? What would you like to see?
Well, in open banking, it was first reliant on banks creating APIs, which the large banks in the UK started in 2018, and in Europe, it really just started end of last year. It takes a long time for those APIs to stabilize. Last year in the UK, we really saw the inflection point for data use cases. So, as Peter mentioned, credit scoring for loan applications was the #1 initial use case that really took off quickly. And then there was far too many personal financial management tools chasing too few actual end customers. Every bank produced a personal financial management tool to help you better manage your finances, but great use case. We're finally now seeing this year in the UK, the API stabilizing sufficiently so that the payments use cases are really taking off. So in the next year, I really see kind of the focus on open banking shifting from data to payments. As I mentioned, our objective for 2021 is to drive a giant shift from the use of credit cards and payment wallets to the use of bank transfers, and to make that as convenient as a credit card. And I think just what we'll continue to see, what open banking does is it provides access to underlying data and payments, which powers a whole new financial services layer. And that financial services layer can be powered by big tech or fintech or banks. And I think we're going to continue to see more and more innovative applications leveraging that access to banks.
It's the understanding, isn't it? And then the tech and the responsiveness to be able to deliver quickly to what the data's showing you. Lots to go at there then, I guess. And Peter, I have a question for you. I guess it's around collaboration, but it's around how important is collaboration between the fintech industry and the regulator going to be during 2021 if we're to follow up on the success that we've seen in the fintech industry in 2020? It's a perennial question. I see you shaking your head there.
Well, I'm not shaking my head. I think it's more, if you take the cost of regulation to our industry over the last 2 years, it's been significant. I think we've spent more than £2 million ensuring that we're fit for purpose. We had PSD2, we then had the Wirecard issue, which has actually sent the FCA and likes into super spasm. So we are dealing with that across Europe. We're seeing regulatory readjustment, understanding. Regulators, they normally react, they don't prevent, which is a sad situation. So I think what we're going to see in the fintech industry is some pretty dynamic changes. One is that many of the players that are currently in this area have got to understand where they fit into the ecosystem. You cannot be a payments provider unless you have invested considerably. You've got to have platforms which are reliable, 99.999% availability is key to survival. You can't operate below those sort of criteria. You can't have fragmented supplier relationships. I mean, there's a lot of people going out there saying we're a great aggregator. Well, aggregation is where we were in 2008, and it's a nightmare because you've got too many moving parts, and the regulator is not going to like that. One thing that Wirecard demonstrated was that fragmented payment infrastructures servicing a market is dangerous. So we're going to see a lot of realization come out that the regulators are going to up their game. There's a nice big shiny building, in the old in London, which has got the FCA in it. They're recruiting heavily. They're looking to actually become a true regulator. And that's going to impact a lot of people. And people in the fintech space, depending on where they fit in, think that they can go round the side of the regs. That ain't going to happen. It's going to be absolutely not the way forward. And one of our, the largest growing department in our business is compliance and risk. Because two things have happened in COVID. The clever fraudsters have had time to sit, think, and dream up new attacks on us. But also, people are now wanting absolute assurance that their business partner is solid, because that's what they want. They want to know that when they make a payment, it happens, and they want to know it's under control. I think the final impact on fintech is that a lot of the focus is going to change from the investment community. I'm an investor, so when we look at it, we're now looking for less glamour and more, if you like, solid footings to put our money into. And I think some of the super hype that we've experienced over the last 2 years, which has driven a lot of investment, is going to actually change dramatically. So it's going to be value for money, and is this thing possibly going to make money properly and have a sustainable future? So I think COVID has had an impact second to none. So I think we're in a very exciting time, but this is a time where you need to choose the right partners. You need to make sure you do your due diligence and you really lift up the bonnet and look at what's underneath before you actually jump into it. And price is not the answer. You've actually got to, you get what you pay for. So this is a tough time. I mean, we've been bombarded with people telling us that, we're more expensive than competition. But my answer to that, and it's the same as Token, I'm sure, is we do more than competition, and we do it well, and we do it safely. And your brand, your reputation is on the line. If it doesn't work, it's your business you destroy.
Yeah. It's so interesting to hear that insight, especially around that focus on risk. Peter, I think, as you said, a lot of new fintechs, or a lot of the fintech market has seen the regulator as let's get around them. They're restrictive, but as you say, actually moving to being a sustainable long-term industry, actually working with the regulator and respecting that process is going to enable that sustainability and ultimately, responsible innovation. And the market won't be flooded with inappropriate or not long-term tech, perhaps.
You've got to understand the regulator's got all day. Fintechs haven't. So don't fight it. Work with it and make it appropriate. And I think the regulator's open to those discussions, and they have raised some very important questions. The CEO letter that came out a few months ago was, well, what happens if your business goes bust? How does it impact your users? Do you have an exit plan? Well, no fintech thinks about exiting; they think about growth. But we've seen exits all over the place, and we've got to protect the consumer. We've got to protect it.
It's that better governance, isn't it? The industry we're all in.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, and I think maybe just. I really appreciate it. I'm sure the audience have the insights that you've shared about your relationship and also your thoughts on how important partnerships are to the market. But perhaps just close with the same question to both of you. What makes a good partnership? Todd, any closing thoughts from you on that?
Yeah, I think alignment of vision, which we've talked about, fit of technologies, and as Peter said, lifting up the hoods, relationship at the highest levels, hence Peter and I here. Then it takes care and feeding. So enabling it on an ongoing basis and providing oversight.
Yeah.
Right. And Peter, perhaps closing words from you then to close us out.
Well, I think Todd summed up the relationship approach absolutely 100%. And the fact that people can pick the phone up and talk, and rather than write letters or emails. I mean, one of the things that I really battle with in our organization is getting people to talk, not email. And also making sure that you have a relationship management system that makes sure that people are fully aware of all the connections and what's going on in that relationship. Otherwise, you can end up with some pretty dysfunctional activity where somebody somewhere has decided to go off on a tangent, unknown in this particular case to Todd or myself. So it's being open. I think the biggest thing is honesty. We are all going to have problems. None of us do not have problems. The answer is, can you be open about them, and have you got the way to resolve them? And I think that's the key.
Yeah. Perfect. Right. Well, thank you both for participating today. I guess if anybody who's listening has got questions for either Todd or Peter, please feel free to use the chat in the side panel. I guess that's just for me to say thank you so much for joining us. It's been really insightful for me, and I know the audience will have felt the same. So I shall hand back over to Mark.